This is Julian, and I'm here in Zurich, Switzerland, and what I want to talk about in this video here is the topic of marriage. In case you missed it, I got married this year on May 25th. I announced it on my Instagram, and ever since then, I've been getting a lot of questions about this. Julian, what motivated you to get married? Julian, what did you learn from being married? How did it affect your relationship? Did it change anything? And what I want to do in this video here is answer all of these questions and more, and share what I've learned so far about marriage. So the first thing that I want to say is that marriage isn't a solution to a bad relationship. We're conditioned to think this way. My relationship's getting a little stale. It's not what it used to be. There's not that same spark. There's not the same attraction. I guess this means it's time for us to get married. Marriage is going to save us. Marriage is going to change everything. It's the solution. Wrong. What does marriage do? It simply amplifies what you already have. If you're currently in a bad and toxic relationship, getting married is going to amplify that. It's not going to fix it. So before even thinking about marriage, you must audit your relationship. You must audit what you have. Is this a healthy relationship or an unhealthy relationship? Who is my partner? How do we get along? Is there a certain amount of chemistry? And even beyond that, do we click? Do we think alike? And this requires spending a certain amount of time with your partner. Imagine you were locked in a box, a room, a white room with your partner, and there's nothing to do. It's like this little white prison cell. It's you and your partner, and let's just say you're in there for 5 years. Whoever you're with now, you're in there for 5 years, and there's no TV, there are no distractions, there are no games. It's just you and your partner, and you're stuck there. If after 5 years, when you leave that box with your partner, you still feel like, what? I love you. It's you and me. Then consider getting married. If this thought here suddenly triggers something inside of you, if you're like, oh, the person I'm dating now, if I were stuck with them for 5 years in a box, oh my God, then don't even let your mind go there. Okay, but this is very important, and it's not something that's really pumped in the mainstream. We think that, love is all about attraction. If you're really attracted to your partner, then perhaps consider truly committing to your partner. No, there is so much more than that. Another good test is write this down. Make 3 columns. One column is love attraction, and list out all the things you find attractive about your partner. Okay, there's this, there's this, there's this. The things that turn you on. You could even think of sexual attraction. In the middle column, write down all the things that attract you in your partner that aren't sexual. If you took away that sexual attractiveness, what about your partner do you resonate with? What attracts you there? Perhaps shared values. Oh, thinking alike, shared interests. What about your partner do you like? List that out. And then in the third column, list out the things that you're willing to sacrifice for this relationship, to be with your partner. We don't like hearing that. We're like, what do you mean? Sacrificing in a relationship? Yes, it does require a certain amount of sacrifice. You get a lot more in return, but you do have to sacrifice some. It's not all just fun and games like, I will never sacrifice anything, and nor will you. Now, of course, there's compromise. What are you willing to compromise? Write that down, and it'll also help give you a clear idea of what your relationship is made of. It also requires thinking more long term. Say I'm to commit to this person for life. What does that look like? And get detailed. Do we think alike? Do we want kids? Say we have kids. How are we going to raise our kids? What diet are they going to have? What about religion? Or do we share the same values? Are we going to teach them the same thing? Are there going to be disagreements? How do we handle disagreements with each other? Can we handle it? Can we talk? Do our families get along? Do we get along with the different families? What's going on? What about our finances? How's that going to work out? Get really detailed and honest with all of that. And what this also means is testing your relationship with adversity. This is key. These are the requirements before even entertaining the idea of marriage. How does going through adversity affect your partner and you and the relationship? This is so crucial. Okay, in an interaction, this is called congruence testing. When you meet someone new and they present who they are to you, they're like, hey, this is me and this is what I got going for me, you're not just going to accept that at face value. To really learn more about that person, to get to know that person, you're going to want to test them for congruence. Are they congruent with who they present themselves to be? And the way you're going to test them is you might throw, usually unconsciously, different challenges their way. Okay, are they still the same person in this situation? What if I say this? What if I do that? Are they still the same person when they meet my friends? Ooh, what about in this environment? How do they act? What about on vacation? There's all these different tests that happen for you to really get to know someone. And the same thing happens in a relationship. You want to test your relationship. Now, this isn't something that you must do consciously, like, how am I going to test it? Trust me, life will do this for you in the form of adversity, in the form of different challenges that are going to happen to your relationship. And we tend to shy away from that. We're like, oh, let's avoid that. Or if there's a challenge, the relationship breaks, in which case it's probably a sign that it wasn't a relationship that you wanted to commit to. It wasn't built on a solid foundation. But adversity is amazing for relationships. It's what deepens the relationship. You know, for me personally, I've been through a lot of adversity. One was a media scandal that I was in 5 years ago, back in 2014, and that definitely deepened the relationship. Seeing my partner stick with me through that, no matter what, lose friends over it, get all this bad press, again, in her social circle, her work circle, and still sticking through it, definitely deepened the relationship. And there were many different adverse situations after that. And that is an amazing, amazing thing to go through that just shows you, wow, this is what my relationship is. This is who this person actually is. And it plays a very important role in terms of building that solid foundation. So what does marriage actually do exactly? Okay, this is something that Carl Jung talks about. It's something Jordan Peterson talks about as well. It places a boundary on the relationship where there's now some skin in the game. There's something to lose. You know, prior to marriage, if you're in a relationship and say you get into an argument, it's easy to just say, you know what, we're done. Peace out, and you break up, right? It's not too hard. You just say, okay, we're done. That's it. Oh, I don't want to deal with that. You know what, we're done. And a lot of couples use that, this back and forth of just, threatening to leave. Like, yeah, we're done. Oh, I don't want to go there. It's a little too uncomfortable. We'll just break up. Oh, no, let's stay together. Oh, we're done. No, please stay together. Or they actually break up. With marriage, you put some skin in the game where, although you can still end the relationship, it's a lot harder to do so, right? Now, if you want to end it, instead of being like, oh, we're fighting right now, we're done. Okay, well, let's call a lawyer and let's go through the process of divorce. Let's go through that. And what happens knowing that that is what happens, that there's some skin in the game, it gets you a lot more solution oriented. Instead of just taking the easy way out of, okay, we're done, you start viewing yourself and your partner as a unit. Okay, we're a team, we're stuck together here in a good way. How are we going to find a solution here? Instead of just going the easy opt out when it gets uncomfortable, how are we going to deal with this? We're in it for life. It's you and me. What are we going to do? And a lot of options and a lot of new, you could say, paths open up that you would have been blind to otherwise. And a lot of people hate, what about divorce? Divorce is so bad. I actually think that's great. You don't want divorce to not be bad. Why? Because then there's no skin in the game. Then what's the point? It's the same as not being married. Where you're like, okay, well, peace out then. Oh, but aren't you afraid? What if you get divorced and, all your money's gone? Well, good. There's some incentive to stay in. And it's not just the money factor. Okay, in today's world, it's, the guy will lose all of his money. That's really pumped in the mainstream narrative. But they also fail to address, okay, on the other person's side, what about the emotional trauma of going through that? It's very rare, although it happens, but it is a lot more rare to see someone who comes out of a divorce just radiating with life. They might do well, but you can still see traces of trauma of going through that. You wouldn't enter a business without signing a contract with your business partner, right? It's like, let's start this business, but you could leave at any time, and so could I. That is not going to be a healthy relationship, and that business is not going to last. And that is what marriage does. That is one of the big reasons I personally chose to get married. I wanted that boundary. I'm like, you know what? We are great together. Sinking into those perspectives. We've been together this long. If we were stuck in a box together, it'd be great. We think alike. We share the same values. Let's do this. Let's place a boundary. Let's cement ourselves as a unit. And ever since then, the focus has been much more solution-oriented. And those little, I don't know about this, like, even the thought entertained, like, I could always leave. Now that it's gone, something truly special happens, you could say. It amplifies that commitment. It amplifies the bond. So that is huge. And this is also what allows you to tap into deep inner work in your relationship. And this is very important. You know, inner work, in my opinion, as you know by now, is everything. Okay, diving into those inner demons, diving into past trauma, diving into the different things that you disowned. And you can do a lot of it, if not all of it, on your own, obviously. But there are some things that a partner will trigger in you that are close to impossible to bring it up on your own. You know, being in a deep relationship, you're going to have to confront every aspect inside of you. Your partner is going to trigger you like no other. You know, different situations trigger you, yes. Your family triggers you. There's that funny saying, you know, if you ever want to get triggered, go spend a weekend with your family. But in a deep relationship like this, especially when it comes to intimacy and putting everything that you are out there, being authentic, it's going to be very triggering. Your partner's going to trigger you. You're going to trigger them. It's going to bring up a lot. You know, people talk about, oh, the honeymoon phase. When you meet someone new, you know, both people kind of put on this front and then the honeymoon phase happens. And we view it as bad. But no, what is the honeymoon phase? You reached a point where your mind's like, you know what? We're now a thing. Okay, we're locked in. Let's bring it all up. Let's be real. And what does marriage do? It's a deeper version of that. You get married, trust me, even more of that's going to come up. But that is actually good because now there's the boundary in place. Instead of all this is coming up, you know what, this is too much to deal with, peace out, let's work through this. And you both grow together. You both face different aspects that you disowned that you probably wouldn't have faced otherwise. Okay, and that is just something that's absolutely special and extremely transformative. The last thing I want to touch on here is width of experience versus depth of experience. What is width of experience? These are, you could say, surface level experiences. It's the experiences that happen when you meet someone new. It's very exciting. You travel, you go to a new environment. It's all these new kind of exciting, in the moment experiences. And those are great. Okay, I've spent most of my 20s just going after all these different experiences that were amazing, but also very surface level. Okay, what is the difference between width of experience and depth of experience? Depth of experience is something like mastering a craft for a long period of time, or the different experiences that you can only have with someone who you've known for a long period of time. Okay, width of experience, you meet someone new, you spend some time together, it's amazing. Depth of experience, you have an experience with someone you might be, 2-3 years in with, and new experiences unlock to the both of you because you've known each other for that long. And both are great, and I think everyone should have both. Okay, but what happens is if you're only focused on the width, after a certain amount of time, there's a diminishing return. What's another crazy night out? I'm meeting a new person. After a while, you don't just get, the same excitement, the same fulfillment from it. And at that point, you could say, inspiration, that innate drive inside of you starts steering you towards, what excites me now? Depth of experience. And this can be hard to understand if you're someone who's really in the width. You're like, what do you mean depth of experience? How is that exciting? It's because you haven't necessarily reached that point yet. And that's fine, okay? Both are great. I think people that only focus on the depth are missing out in terms of the width, and people only focus on the width are missing out on the depth. For me personally, because I've spent so much time on the width, my excitement now comes from the depth. And that was another big reason for getting married. It unlocks a lot more of those deeper experiences. That's what turns me on. That's what excites me. That's what fulfills me. Okay, and it doesn't take away from the surface. I'm going to do that too, and I'm going to go out and experience things on a surface wide level as well. But don't neglect the depth. Okay, that's the last distinction I want to make here. And do keep in mind, going back to the very first point, okay, marriage isn't the solution. If you have a bad foundation, marriage isn't going to help. Realize that a lot of the narrative around marriage that's being pumped in the mainstream, but that's being fed to you, is built on bad foundations. When you hear like marriage is settling down, oh, marriage is bad, oh, this thing's gonna happen, that is gonna take away the spark, oh, it's gonna ruin the relationship, the divorce rate, the divorce rate. Realize that all that data comes from the fact that most people have horrible foundations to begin with. Marriage isn't necessarily the problem, it's the foundation of the relationship that is the problem. Most people have a very limited circle in terms of who they can meet, so they never find that person where there's that true chemistry. They're like, well, there's my social circle, my few friends and work, and I guess I'll pick what I can here. Ooh, and it's just not a good match. And then they double down on that, they get married, and then guess what? If everyone does that, of course marriage is going to have a bad rep. It's like, oh, don't do that. Remember, the foundation is everything. Marriage is not a solution. Marriage places a boundary. It creates depth. It creates commitment. It deepens that love. It deepens that experience. And it really forms that bond of, instead of just me, oh, and maybe another person here and there, it's us together. We are a unit. And another negative thing that's passed around is, oh, it's settling down and it'll take away from your drive and your purpose. No. If it's built on a bound foundation, yes. A healthy relationship is a relationship that empowers both parties. Okay, so this is, what I've learned when it comes to marriage, and by no means am I an expert. Okay, you'd want to talk to someone who's married for like 20, 30, 40 years, but I've been getting a lot of questions, and these are some of the reasons for getting married, what I've experienced in terms of being married, and expect more to come as things deepen and deepen. Until next time.